advertisers pay for the number of real people seeing their advertising. And to hear Elon Musk say that it could be 90% fake accounts, what do you think the advertisers are going to say about that? And we don't know because Twitter hasn't responded to that.
Well, Maria, a few things going on here. The tentacles of the left and their institutional power are completely intertwined with big tech in this country. And part of the reason why it's a threat to them is if Elon buys Twitter, that loses, they lose one of their power structures and their way to kind of manipulate information. Second important thing is Twitter, in terms of business prospects, they didn't really exist until Elon showed up. So Elon's bid was accepted in an extraordinarily short period of time, which means there were no other competing bids, as well as the fact that there was no internal models saying that the price could get anywhere close to 54. So if Elon's smart, he has to buy this much lower than he initially bought because there's no reason for him to pay anywhere near that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And why isn't the Justice Department looking into the outright fraud versus looking into Elon?
Yeah, that's just all such great questions, Mike. But let me say this. If he's doing this to expose that they don't have the accounts that they say that they do, and because of that, we have to lower the price, don't you think there will be more bidders? I mean, there aren't a lot of bidders up at $44 billion. If you're talking about a $20 billion price tag, well, then you probably will likely see more bidders, no?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, this is just a horrifically run business, and it needs to go private for somebody. And I think Elon's one of the few people that has the cash that can do it.
Yeah, Angela, real quick, your thoughts?
Maria, Angela's exactly right. The left does not lack clarity. It's just that what they're clear about and the contrast they have to the Republican Party are just extremely unpopular positions. And like you combine that with the incompetence that's gone on since the Biden administration has took over, and you have one of the most unpopular parties in power in the history of America. I believe amongst independents in Georgia, Richard Barris came out with a poll that only 5% of independents in Georgia, a key swing state in all the next few elections, only 5% of independents strongly approve of Joe Biden, which is exponentially less than Trump or Obama at any of the low points during their terms as president. We're coming up for a massive red wave, not as a result of a lack of clarity, but as a result of unpopular positions and incompetence.
Yeah, I mean, last week we had a poll saying that 3/4 of Americans say that the country is on the wrong track.
Yeah, it's I've never seen anything like this in my life, even at the worst times of the Iraq War with George W. Bush, the worst times of the financial crisis. It's really unbelievable. And it's 50% of the country doesn't have $500 to cover an unexpected expense. And how is gas prices doubling or tripling, as well as inflation of everyday goods going through the roof, food prices up 40-50% since pre-COVID levels? How do you think they feel towards this administration and Mayor Pete getting on the Sunday show saying, well, the government doesn't manufacture baby formula? I mean, it's a level of arrogance combined with incompetence and hubris. I've never seen anything like it.
And they're tone deaf. Well, Angela and Michael, stay right there. The next hour of Mornings with Maria begins right now. If you say forget about it, I'm not going to buy it. And we're going to get a good window into the consumer, Michael, this week, because you've got retailers taking center stage in terms of quarterly earnings. Walmart, Home Depot will report on Tuesday. You've also got Lowe's, Target, Kohl's, all reporting their first quarter results this week. And Michael, you also have retail sales coming out. So we'll get a great look at the consumer. What are you expecting?
Yeah, Maria, you just hit the nail on the head in terms of everything driving the markets right now is inflation. And you've got two ways to solve that. You can either increase supply or decrease demand, or both. So what I'm looking for into these earnings is how much demand destruction have we seen from the Fed taking substantial liquidity out of the market. And while they've only raised 75 basis points, their jawboning is priced in about 10 rate hikes into the market at the moment. So I'd expect fairly decent earnings from all of these companies that come in. But what we really need to look for is the forward guidance. Are we seeing a slowing in consumer spending? Are we seeing supply chains easing? What is happening to the cost pressures at various parts of the different business units? So this was going to give us a great insight into what's actually going on in the economy. What are the biggest people who are out there in the markets every single day seeing? And from that, you can extrapolate how much more active the Fed is going to need to be, i.e. where stock price is going to go for the rest of the year.
So, in other words, what you're saying is, depending on what we see this week, you think is going to dictate whether or not the Federal Reserve needs to be more aggressive than 50 basis points hikes for the next 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to get a tremendous amount of information from the forward guidance from all of these companies, from what they're seeing in real time. Is the Fed going out there and trying to destroy demand actually working? So I'll be listening to a bunch of these calls and trying to make my own conclusions from there, and we'll see how the market reacts.
All right. Luke Lloyd, Adam Johnson, great to see you.
Yeah, Joe Biden has been saying stupid things since he got to Washington, 50 years ago. And this tweet is completely on brand for him. That somehow, the notion that somehow raising corporate taxes would help fight inflation is like literally saying up is down, left is right, and black is white. It's unbelievable. Higher corporate taxes will get passed on to the consumer, further exacerbating the problem, which just goes to show that if anybody thought that this administration has any idea what they're doing or is in somehow command of this inflation problem, the worst in several decades, is just out to lunch. It's absolute insanity that they would suggest that raising corporate taxes would somehow lower inflation. It's hard to accept that someone would actually say that with a straight face. Then again, you look in charge, and again, I'd say it's on brand for these people.
Yeah. All right, Angela, Mike, thanks. We're going to take a short break. When we come, what this is going to tell us, Mike Lee, because advertisers pay for active users, and you've got Elon Musk, who is willing to pay $44 billion for this company, out saying it could be 90% of active users are actual robots or fake accounts.
Yeah, Maria, this is a massive scandal on the part of Twitter. Maybe it's a good reason why their company has had so little success since going public. It's just been horrifically run, which makes the prospect of somebody like an Elon that can take this company private, entirely rework the business model, very exciting. But at the same time, again, the Justice Department, the SEC, the National Transportation Safety Board, the EPA, all these people are looking into Elon, not the fraud that's going on over there at Twitter. So it really is going to be interesting to see how far this goes. And another point that someone else brought up is that if Elon does take control, what is he going to find in terms of them lying to Congress about shadow banning, censorship, and all these other things that they claim they don't do, which they obviously do. So there's a lot of scandal and a lot of dirt behind the curtains, if you will, over there. It'd be interesting to see what else comes out.
Well, I mean, I think this is such a big story that Elon Musk is questioning whether 90% of active users are actually fake, Mike. I mean, look, we've got to hear back from Twitter. Twitter has yet to respond here, but we know that Elon Musk also tweeted out over the weekend that the legal team at Twitter is saying that he may have violated his NDA, non-disclosure agreement, by talking about this. And we have to point out, Angela, that the head of legal at Twitter Maria,
they talk about January 6th as an insurrection. Like, what is not Michael, if you want to know what an insurrection is, it's using the power of the national security state to upend a duly elected president of the United States. This was fake from the beginning. It was created so that if Hillary Clinton was indicted over her illegal email server and trafficking in classified information outside the scope of the federal government, that if Joe Biden was inserted at the last minute, that they could take out President Trump and ideally have someone else come in. It's been faked from the start. It should terrify every American that the highest levels of the FBI can do this to a presidential candidate. They could spy on him. They could and they can basically do whatever they want. This is the first part of accountability, hopefully, that comes from that. This was an awful thing, and let's hope it stays in the public domain so we can figure out and get to the bottom of it.
You are spot on, Michael. And if they can do it to him, what are they doing to you? Quick break, and then the border crisis rolls on. It's way too cloudy for me to get that beautiful a look. Did you see it?
I did not. I did not see it. But this reminds me of the great sight when we had an eclipse a few years ago, and President Trump stood out on the balcony and stared right at it with no glasses. That was another great moment from the previous administration. And then whenever anyone says total eclipse, I just think of the wedding scene in the movie from Old School and Total Eclipse of the Heart. So it's a classic scene in the great Will Ferrell movie. Will Ferrell movie. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's time to turn it back on, cheer you up from all the bad things going on in the rest of the world.
Yeah, well, that's funny. I forgot about that. The next lunar eclipse happens in November. If you missed it last night, we will certainly remind you ahead of time. This morning, we're focused on retail. Michael Lee, any thoughts on retail sales before we go and the retail earnings that we're going to get tomorrow? How important is the Walmart and Home Depot quarters?
It's all about guidance. It's all about guidance. Good numbers, bad numbers. I mean, bad numbers for these companies will get punished severely. I don't know that good numbers will get rewarded. But if we see decent guidance and we get some clarity that supply chains may be easing up and that the consumer demand still remains strong but not too strong, that could be a positive for the market.
Yeah, well, we got a big week, not just retail earnings and a look at the consumer, but of course, Michael Sussman, the Clinton lawyer's trial begins today with jury selection, and Title 42 expected to go away in a week. Michael Lee, Angela Morabito, great to be with you both this morning. Have a great Monday. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Varney & Company begins right now. Ashley Webster.